Welcome everyone to the Mason J Show. We are back with season 4. I'm so happy that my good friend Felicia Budny is going to be our guest on the episode today. I'm so happy to be back recording. I don't know if this episode's going to come out as the first or what order, but this is our first recording, my first recording since my season 3 end, prepping for season 4, and it feels good to be back on. Thanks for joining me, Felicia.
Thank you for having me, and we're glad you're back.
Right now, we are at the new studio in Frisco, Colorado. Just got everything set up, and Felicia flew out here, not necessarily for the podcast itself, but was lucky enough to grab her for an episode while we were in person. How have you been liking Colorado and the weekend trips?
I love it. I definitely feel very at peace and refreshed here. I've just been enjoying the outdoors. I miss it. I live in Baltimore City, and so I don't get a whole lot of nature. So this has been really nice and I came alone too, so I get to sit with my thoughts, relax a little bit. Because you did some
solo camping before you came out this way over in Utah.
Yeah, so I flew into Denver and drove to Moab, and I did like those 3 parks right there, like Canyonlands, Arches, all of that. And took some time by myself, which was really nice. And then came here to visit Mason, and he showed me around yesterday. We went on a nice hike. I really like it. The chill mountain life, big fan. Like it a lot.
Do you feel like, because you live in Baltimore City, townhomes, like very central to the Federal Hill area, if those that are familiar with that Maryland region, do you feel like creatively, before we get into that, I should also say that the reason Felicia is on the podcast today is because she is a very talented, creative photographer, both in the music, EDM, music video kind of media space, and also with weddings. And you've definitely dabbled in landscape photography and travel shoots and things like that. And you've always been incredibly talented, even from the beginning of you starting your content, and it's been cool to see your trajectory. So wanted to grab Felicia on the podcast today to just talk about her creative process and what, motivates you overall. Okay, back up.
Well, yes, thank you very much for the compliments. So yeah, I'm in town actually for a wedding that I'll be shooting in Beaver Creek. I've been trying to grow and expand out west and start traveling more for weddings and whatever else I'm shooting. So one, I'd like to maybe eventually move out here. And also I just kind of want to live my life on the go. I don't want to be working just in Maryland. I love my Maryland clients, but I want to get out.
Absolutely.
So, I've been trying to move out here, get some new people on the books and everything. So I'm super excited. Shooting my first Colorado wedding on Saturday, tomorrow.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Very awesome location too, out in Beaver Creek. It's a gorgeous area.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then since I've been here, I've just been like trying to do some little shoots here and there. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but either way, it's just doing it for fun, for practice, and then also just like a nice chill reset.
Cool. So we're going to be trickling the conversation between like Felicia's travels and her personal life and my curiosity of how that influenced your creative content and how it's motivated you to continue to push in this certain career direction, which you've been at it for 3-4 years now, 5 years.
Yeah, I've been I started on and off like freelance. I've always done like the photography video stuff since like high school. I'm 25 now. But I started doing like full-time freelance like pretty much exactly 2 years ago. So yeah, before that I was working at a marketing agency and was just doing stuff on the side.
And by freelance, you mean you're just kind of taking jobs as they come, like commissioned?
Yeah. So I am not full-time or part-time employed by anyone else. I just, all the work I get, I find myself, and then I'm paid by those individuals. So yeah, and that's everything from weddings, EDM, concerts, live music, all the stuff you mentioned. Sometimes I'll do marketing stuff too. I want to dive more into that, but I've really been focused on the whole concert thing, live music, and weddings. So eventually get back into some marketing stuff. But for right now, it's on pause with that.
It seems like all the projects that you work on and that I'm aware of through social media that you post about are all like super exciting events, and all the shows and music festivals that you get to both, you know, attend and shoot film for the DJs and the music artists that are up there. That looks extremely exciting. And like, what is that like? How did you get into that angle?
So I shout out to my boyfriend, Brian. He got me
Love
into,
Brian.
yes.
Nugent.
Yes. He got me into the world of like EDM music festivals, all of that. He kind of dabbled in it first and then was like, you have to come with me. It's super fun. And from there I started going to music festivals and like expanding my own like music taste, what I like. And I really fell in love with how much like happiness and community and all the good things that come with music festivals. I felt like just really good being at them, and I know everyone that attends them has a great time, and I think they're a really positive thing for people to experience. So I always wanted to, I had already been into photography and videography. I didn't really see it as a career at that point, but it was always kind of a dream where I was like, oh, that'd be super cool to capture these music festivals and everything, because then of course you follow them on social media and you're like, wow, these videos evoke so much emotion. And like having either experienced the festival and seeing it afterward and like all their recap videos being like, oh my gosh, like that's how I felt, like that really was what it was like, or like of course the marketing aspect, like getting people to attend them. But yeah, once I started going to them, I was like, I would love to do that. That's something I would really like. Didn't ever think it would happen. But it did become like somewhat of a dream. How I got started with music, I always wanted to shoot music videos. I used to like sit and watch YouTube for hours and watch all these music videos because I've always really loved music.
Right.
But I myself am not musically talented. We were just talking about this yesterday.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not either. It's something that personally I've written off as like, I really appreciate it. I respect those that can do it. I also understand that I'm not going to be able to produce that. It would take so much work, and it's just not something my brain is personally routed for. Like, I can do physical things, I like that, but the music, I'll just go and listen to it. You know?
It's not, it doesn't come naturally for me. I mean, I used to dance when I was younger, so like I know good music and can appreciate it and know how it's supposed to make you feel, but I can't produce it, at least as far as I know. And yeah, so I wanted to get into music videos because I was like, that's the closest I can maybe get to it, and I just loved how creative they were and how you could just tell any story you wanted to. Like, there really are no rules with music videos. So in high school, when I started I went to Eastern Tech in Essex. And we went to Eastern Tech. That's where we met. We've known each other a very long time. So we went there, and I took interactive media productions, IMP there. And my favorite, of course, unit was like the music video unit and whatever. And from there, I was like, okay, I want to keep doing this somehow. So I went on to going to Towson and taking their film program there, Towson University in Baltimore. And I liked it, but I kind of started to lose my way in college. Like, I just sort of, like, I don't know, I got wrapped up in the whole college scene and making friends and like whatever. And I was like not feeling the whole creative side of myself. I think I just was distracted by other things. And so I ended up switching majors to advertising and marketing. And I liked it, but it was more just like, I don't know what else to do, so I'm going to pick this. And it was like fun for a little while. I did work in it for a little bit, but I always I learned that I didn't like how restricted like the whole marketing world was. And it just felt so driven towards sales. And I don't know, I wanted it to,
wasn't your forte.
No, it's just not. Like, I consider myself like an emotional person, and I like love life, and I love, you know, everything that, like, I like telling a story, and I think like marketing is just like capitalism.
Yeah, well, and because I know you so well, like, I understand what you're saying, and you're very much like a creative person. Like you said, with storytelling, it's the fun of it is creating what you want the story to be, not how in a marketing position and that type of creation, it's you're making things for other people exactly how they want it. Right. And I'm sure there's creative like aspects of that, but when it comes to you filming for a massive, like, you know, a stadium full of people doing the EDM shows, it's up to you to make that artist look as good as you can, because that's your job as a content creator. And I think it's actually really hard probably to do that, because music events are so captivating in person, but it's really hard to capture that on film. And like, it's really cool when friends go to shows and they take videos on their phone and post them. And like, there's some artists that I'll like watch, I'll be like, oh, it's probably so cool in person. But for you to be able to capture the hype and make the, get the drops, and when the crowd goes crazy and you really tie that together, I mean, that's like your like baby product of what you want everyone else to experience from it.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely hard, I think. And sometimes, like, honestly, you have to, like, not fake it, but you have to have your head on a swivel and be ready to, like, be looking for the right moments and put them all together and kind of curate your own story of what happened that day or during that set, like, whatever it was. So, like, no, it's not always all organic, but that's also a part of it. It's, looking for the right stuff and knowing how to pull it together, knowing what looks good. And it's fun though, because I've found like they're the best people to work with. Like, so far I've had a great experience with the music industry. Like, it can definitely be tough. Like, it was a huge learning curve at first. The turnaround times are a lot different. The deliverables, everything, it's all like a lot last minute. You have to be on your toes about everything. You have to be able to expect anything. But I think for the most part, it's like really great because everybody is creative and mostly open-minded, and especially people in the crowd, even like it's not like, I've shot at like clubs before and it's just people out partying, whatever. But I swear at like concerts and stuff like that, like music festivals, everybody is so nice and welcoming and wants, to put on their happy face and like just give their all if they see the camera, and they're super nice to me. And it's really cool. Like, I definitely like feel a part of the community too. Like, not only am I capturing it, but it fills me up to do it. Like, I feel good. I leave feeling better than when I started, and like, it's not draining at all. Like, I'm so excited to go home and edit everything. So yeah, definitely. Yeah,
that's so beautiful. And that's one of the reasons why you stand out to me among the people, in my life now and that have, been in my life and I've seen grow, because you very early on were able to like identify what you like, music festivals, music, and almost like in a beeline, get to that and start working in it, early, get your experience when you're young. And, again, 4 or 5 years have you been doing this?
Yeah, I've only been doing the EDM and concert stuff for about a year and a half.
For a year and a half?
Yeah.
And like, you're shooting with Grizz, you're shooting with Zingara?
Well, I've worked with Zingara a lot. Grizz haven't worked, like, I've met him, haven't been hired by him personally, but I worked his events.
Cool.
So that's really cool. Like, I've learned a lot of it really is just like networking and, just getting to know everyone and take every opportunity that you can. I started by getting an internship at Echo Stage in DC, which is like, they're rated one of the like top venues in the world by DJ Magazine. Shout out to Echo Stage. And so I started off with them, and I was interning, and I was actually just working the green rooms. I started in like hospitality and artist relations, and just so I could be there and be backstage, learn the lingo, like meet whoever I can. And from there, they were like, yeah, like, you like photo and video, you're welcome to come shoot whenever and practice.
Awesome.
And from there, I was able to start building my portfolio. I think the biggest thing that I got out of that was just meeting other creatives. Like, yes, I met a lot of like people in the industry, but the biggest thing was just meeting creatives and learning from them, and like realizing that like you can trust people and, ask for help, like learn. Like, we have 2 people there, Andrew and Tanya, who are like phenomenal, so like talented, and I've learned so much from them. And like, they in turn have gotten me a ton of opportunities, and just observing them is like a huge part of it. So I built my portfolio there, and just kind of, I couldn't even tell you really like what the first thing that happened or who it was that started, but I was like asked to do a show, and I was like, okay, cool. And I was, of course, more nervous than I've ever been in my whole life. I was like, holy crap, here I go. I'm like getting paid to do a show. But then from there, like,
that's so exciting though.
It
like,
is exciting. It's exciting.
It sounds like it kind of organically maybe fell in your lap because you were able to just be like exist inside that ecosystem of the industry. And I've noticed that too with my path, like through moving out here and through like setting goals of where I want to be, that it's sometimes like the opportunity kind of just like floats in front of you sometimes, and it's up to you to recognize that like, oh, that's the one that we got to get to.
Yeah, and it's weird when that happens, because when it does fall in front of you, you're like, did I earn this? Did I do anything for it? But you do, like, you know, if you're only where you are because of the things you've done. And I think like it's weird to watch it all fall into place, because it doesn't feel like it's ever going to happen, and then suddenly it does. So don't stress about it, I guess. But I mean, yes, like always have to put your best foot forward with everything you do, but like as long as you're doing everything it takes and you put 100% all the time, I think it's all fine.
Do you think if you hadn't been through like the school system with IMP and marketing, and you were kind of just like somebody starting fresh outside of school doing your education through YouTube or watching other people, do you think you could, how do you think it would be getting to where you are now without that prior experience that you had?
That's a good question, because I preach to everyone that you don't need school, you don't need education, you don't need amazing gear. Yes, I had like my background with things, and like with IMP, a lot of it was learning how to use like editing softwares. And that was good to know, but at the same time, like I taught myself so much of it. And like at Towson, I learned a lot about like storytelling, but a lot of it was based around like if you're going to work in Hollywood, and like just not the stuff that I'm doing, I guess. It was more like, oh, here's how to make a storyboard, and here's how to, you know, be a producer or whatever. And I learned I didn't want to do that through that. But I did teach myself a lot through YouTube. A lot. So like that's how I've researched all of my gear and whatever else. So I don't think you need any past education. Like it helps to get yourself in the mindset and meet people that you need to meet. Like through Towson, I met other creative people in the area. Like that's sort of how I met Zingara. Like she went to Towson, but I knew her from another person. So like it just, it really depends. But
it's a weave, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of just like the way the social, like the real life social network works. And you can't really predict, at least in my experience, you can't really predict who comes into your life for a reason and who is, you know, maybe just somebody nice that you meet that pops in and shares some time with you. But it's been interesting for me to like be open-minded about, oh, like let's get to know everybody that kind of crosses through, and you find out that like some people are on the exact path that you're on, and it's really good to like collaborate with them and move up together. Or you find somebody that you're like, oh, I could learn a lot like from this person. I should make sure this relationship is like cool. And I feel like I've gotten all my opportunities through like the network of friends and colleagues and associates.
Definitely.
And really like most of the jobs I've applied for, I didn't get like cold applications online or even like going in and talking to somebody about something like an ad I saw for a job. Like I don't think any of those have worked out. And not that it's in like hundreds, but you know, 10, 25 jobs I've applied for over the past few years. So it just seems like it's so much better to put all that effort into like the people around you and your community. And
definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, of course you have to work on your craft, and you have to, you know, keep up with new skills and everything that's going on, but it really is just like who you know, and staying involved as much as you can, and practice, like so much practice. Like I was like, the biggest thing that I like, at least for me, that I'm like proud of is like I consider myself sort of like a shy and introverted person. Like I can be outgoing, but it's an effort for me. And like I question, you know, am I doing the right things? Did I say the right thing? Like all of that. So for me, like doing the whole concert photography, like weddings too, which we'll get into that, but that is like, for me, like really scary. And like in the beginning, I was like, holy crap, I can't believe that I'm doing this and going and talking to these people that I think are so cool and so successful, and like I don't know if I'm there yet, like are they gonna like me? Like it was a big, like it wasn't always about my talent, it was also about like who I am as a person, and having to like be comfortable with putting my personality out there and not like I really would be so nervous all the time. It's a lot better now. And I'm like grateful that I have my friends who like hype me up, and you know, when I'm feeling down about it, they bring me back up. They're like, you're the shit. Like, it's okay. Like, keep going. Because everyone has their moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do this.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, it's just, you have to put yourself out there and not be afraid of talking to people and meeting people and all of that.
How important is travel to your like creative process and your motivation and your happiness and, you know, kind of where your life's headed and been?
So I guess, like, I grew up, like, my parents would take me on trips and stuff, and I always liked it, but I was kind of like a brat, and I didn't really, like, appreciate it back then. Like, it's funny because I love doing, like, the national parks and everything now, but I know my first time to the Grand Canyon, I was like, I'm hot. I'm bored.
Yeah.
I'm like, everything.
You're just the worst.
So, I don't know. I just, like, it all changed once I started doing it for myself. I think it was kind of like a thing where it made me feel like I have accomplished something. Like I can be proud of myself for making this happen on my own and like seeing the things that I want to see. So like a lot of the things that I do are kind of centered around like, this makes me feel good. And this like I can look at this and be like, wow, I'm proud that I did that. But anyway, so with traveling, I studied abroad in college. And that definitely started a lot of it for me. I didn't really know why I wanted to study abroad. Like, I had been to like...
Where were you?
So I was in Spain. I studied in Sevilla in southern Spain for a semester, so like 4 months. And I went like completely by myself. I didn't know anyone from my school or home or anything. All of my roommates were strangers, and they have ended up being my best friends. Like I still talk to them like every day.
For being an introverted person like you are, like that's a crazy thing to just like decide to go and do.
I don't know if
it's awesome that, you know.
I don't know if I'm introverted, but I definitely get like the insecurities and everything that come with that. Yeah. So anyway, I studied abroad, and that was a really like big and scary process. Like it was really hard to make happen, but I met these it was this one girl in particular actually who studied abroad. She was a little bit older than me in college, and she would like post all this content and like just say how much it like really meant to her. And so for me, it wasn't about like the traveling and like, because everyone would post that they studied abroad, and I was like, oh, that was really cool. But with this girl, she was very open about like what it meant to her and how it changed her mindset and how like just all the positive things that came from it. And I was like, okay, I want to feel how she feels. It's not that I want to experience what she's experienced. Like she just seems like she's got it together, and she feels really good about her life and herself and her future. So that's why I wanted to do it. And I went through the whole process, and like, I don't know why they make it so hard, but I guess they do, because then everybody would do it. Right. And I had to like,
I don't know. It takes some guts to go and live abroad by yourself.
Yeah. It's also like the whole school thing and the transferring credits. Like it's a whole thing. My sister went this past year, and she had a terrible time with it too. Like I've never met anyone who was like, oh yeah, that was really easy. Like, right, no, it's not. But it's worth it. Like stick through it, you know, if you want to do it. But, and of course I had to like convince my parents, because they're all like, oh, why do you want to travel? Like just, you know, go travel when you graduate. Well, they're like, oh, just go travel when you graduate. Like, why are you going to go to school while you're there? And I'm like, but it's different. Like you're there for a while, easier, you meet people. Yeah.
Maybe not easier, but
it's different, you know what I mean? Though. Like you get a certain experience that you're not going to get through like backpacking or whatever, and not having like a home base. So yeah, I went over there, and like I would say that like I had a whole perspective shift. Like that was probably like the biggest defining thing in my life, I think, that happened. And I sound like such a stupid like abroad girl when I say that. Like, oh my god, I went abroad. No. And it changed my life.
But it is life changing though, and really anytime you get to live extensively in a new place, you know, it changes you and it makes you more mature, and you kind of find little pieces of yourself along the way. Because before that, you lived in Ocean City for 3 summers.
One with Mason.
One with Mason, 43rd Street. Great time.
Yes.
But like I can speak from those experiences, or even like living at college for the first time for those 3 semesters I was there. You just kind of start becoming your own adult in those small situations for sure. So I can only imagine living in an entire another country where you really don't know much when you get there, and it's really on you to branch out and make friends and kind of figure out what the next 2 months while you're there is going to consist of. And I can kind of see that from before you left to after you left, just loosely through like social media and the times we got to hang out. You know, like I think it's clear that you have a way that you hold yourself and like a good self-awareness, you know, to kind of what you've accomplished and what you're capable of.
Yeah, I think like it really just taught me that like, okay, if you want something and you do whatever it takes to make it happen, like it will happen. You can make anything happen, and it's going to be worth it. Like it's going to be hard. Like the first month I was like, I want to go home. Like I'm not making friends. Like this is awful. Like, but it's funny. I think a lot of it just comes from like expectations, I guess, like disappointment and whatever. Not that I was disappointed, but it's just like jumping too quick to being like, oh my gosh, was this worth it? Like, did I make the right decision? But it really just taught me like, okay, like there's no need to be afraid. If you want to do something, you can do it. And if it doesn't work out, like that's okay. It's not, you know, going to be the end of the world, but it almost always will work out. Like if you really think you want something, go for it. But yeah, so the whole traveling, like
Beautiful.
the whole traveling thing, I like met a ton of people while I was over there, and just getting the different perspectives of all the different cultures and countries, and like it opened my mind up to so many different things, and I think it made me so much more open-minded, and I like experienced also like so much art and history and just like what makes people happy in different countries and cultures. And like that kind of, I think, inspires me a lot with creativity and showing like emotion and creativity, I guess.
So how do you think being abroad and experiencing like that whole new culture that I'm sure is so different from US and in whatever ways, how has that been like incorporated into your personal style when it comes to your photography?
I think like how it comes through in how I am like creatively and everything is just everything that I felt like so strongly over there, like emotion wise, and just, you know, I love the idea of a story and people's like growth and all of that. I think like it comes through as I want all of my work to create like a certain emotion and to tell a story and be more like journalistic, or kind of like almost like a home movie, but a fancier one. Like, at least that's how I like to do my weddings. Like I know like how like I'm a super like nostalgic person.
That definitely comes through in your content.
I am the most nostalgic person ever. Like I like get so emotional about stuff, and I don't even know if it's like happy or sad emotions. I'm just like, wow, the past, it's great. But I mean, I am excited for the future too, but I don't get like wrapped up in it in a negative way. But I love looking back on memories, and I think that's so important for people. And so I want to like give them something to look back on that, you know, it reminds them of how great that was and how special either their wedding day was, or, you know, maybe that show, like if it's for an artist, like I really care about like the artist getting good like content like for them, and not just stuff that they're going to market themselves with, which I know is equally important, but everyone's life is like an experience, and I think that's like should be treated like sacredly. And so anyway, I think like the traveling just kind of like solidified that for me, like how important it is for me to experience things and like understand that everyone's just out here living life and having experiences and making memories. And I think that like art that's what it is. Like it's just capturing emotion and memories and things that you've experienced. So I think that's my style.
I think that is so beautiful how you worded that, and like so on par with a lot of the reasons why I like content creation as well, because like you forget things. You know, if you go to an event and, you know, the first week it's so vivid in your head, but 2 years later you're like, oh yeah, I went to, you know, I saw this really cool sunrise, but I can't really like describe it. But you know, if you have that good content and those good photos, you know, it just kind of triggers everything about that event so much easier, like pulls it right out of the archive, and really takes you back to that time. And that's why I think it's so cool that you put so much effort into your content, because you do, like, you have the power to really bring that person back to that moment through your directing and your angles and your editing. And, you know, it's a really beautiful thing that you can do for the artists themselves, and also for anybody that wants to know what their shows are like, or, you know, I guess it's a little different with weddings. Yeah. But, you know, that's a whole different emotional event. I wanted to transition to, since we're on the traveling topic, I know that you and your younger sister went on a 2-month cross-country road trip, living out of a van, camping. Want to definitely dive into that. Kind of what spurred the, you know, idea to do that with Shauna, your sister. Where'd you guys like start out on that idea?
So shout out to Shauna, my sister. Honestly, like, we both had this dream together to travel cross country, and I'll get into like where that came from. But like, if it weren't for her, I think I would have let my own fears and doubts get in the way, and it might not have happened. So I am like, my sister is so cool, by the way. She's going to do cool things. But
just like her older sister.
Yeah, thanks. I hope so. She's going to surpass me. I'm sure of it. But so we came up, COVID was a tough time. We all know this. And we all had
tough time.
Very tough time. We all had a lot of thoughts about, you know, what we wanted. Spent too much time alone. But yeah, so during COVID, we were like, okay, like, we got to do something. Like, we're wasting time. Like, we both have always like loved the idea of traveling and seeing nature. And like, our parents had taken us on trips to national parks in the past and stuff. But, you know, not to the point where we've made it like happen ourselves. Aside from, I had studied abroad already at this point, but so Shauna also saw a lot of what I did, and she wanted to study abroad in turn and like all of that. But as far as the van goes, we're like, okay, well, we can't really travel right now because of COVID. We can't be flying places. We can't do whatever. But like, you know, everybody looks at traveling as, you know, outside of the US and going to other countries and whatever, but the US is gorgeous. Like, there's so much out here in the West that like people don't even think about. And so a lot of it was due to honestly seeing other content on social media and like people's photos and their TikToks and things like that. And this is like, I feel like cliche because there are plenty of like girls, at least that I know, that are into this, but like one of our favorite influencers and YouTubers is Indie Blue. And we would watch her stuff through COVID like all the time. And she would like travel to other countries, do all this stuff when she was super young. And like, I like resonated a lot with her because she started shooting weddings when she was like fresh out of high school. And then she like traveled with the money from that and everything. But anyway, so we were super inspired by her, and her like style is to be very, like, I guess like documentary, like, and just like document her life.
Like vlog style?
Yeah, like vlog, but in a more like music video way. Like, it was always edited to music. It's not like she would like stand in front of the camera and talk to it.
Right.
Like, that's something I don't think I can do. I always thought about being like a vlogger, but I don't know if I like talking that much in front of the camera.
You're doing it right now.
I'm doing it. But
yeah. I get what you mean.
Yeah, I just like, I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, so we would watch a ton of her videos, and we were like, we want to do these things. Like, we want to go out and travel more and everything. And I was kind of on the break of deciding if I wanted to go full time with like freelance stuff. Like, I was like, my job was great. I learned a lot from it. But I just like wasn't feeling like I was doing the best I can do. Like, I didn't feel fulfilled from it. And I was like, I'm not challenged enough. So I was like, you know what, maybe I'll see what I can do. Also, I wanted to keep traveling. I like routine, but to a certain extent. I like to keep life interesting, and there's so much I want to see and do. So I was like, okay, the best way to do that is to freelance. Like, I'm never going to find the perfect job other than the one that I create myself. So we were talking about getting a van and traveling cross country. We looked at all the options, and we were going to, either rent something or, drive and camp. I don't love tent camping. So we came up with the idea of the van. Yeah. So
What kind of van did you buy?
It was a Ford Ecoline 150, and it's a 2000. She's a historic old girl.
Nice. 24 years old.
Yeah,
23 years old? 23 years old.
23. Yeah, but she's treated us really well. We thought we were going to buy her and just return her. Well, sell her. Again, not return her. We were going to sell her, but we decided to keep her because, of course, we grew emotionally attached to this man. But yeah, so we were like talking about it and planning it and packing it, and of course I started getting cold feet because I was like, oh my gosh, I have to quit my job if I do this, because we knew we wanted to go for at least 2 months.
Which I think that's what everybody experiences, right? And that's what is the roadblock for, I think, a lot of people down this venture is like, what about my job?
Yeah, the comfort and like, oh my gosh, what if I don't find something else? You need money to survive. Like, you need it. But I think like the biggest thing I've learned is even if you quit your job, and I knew this from the beginning, but I let myself overthink and get scared. I mean, I always worked in the service industry, and I learned a lot from that. And like, there's always going to be another job. It might not be in your field, it might not be whatever, but like, yeah, you will always find something. You're going to be okay. So like, take the risk, try it out. But I started to get cold feet regardless. And I went to we were looking at vans and everything, and finally this one comes up, and Shauna couldn't come with me to look at it. I go with my dad because he knows about cars and stuff, and he's like, I mean, it's in good shape, like it seems like a good deal. Maybe you should go for it, because we were kind of having a hard time. I think during COVID it like spiked that everybody wanted to go on these van trips. It was super popular. How much did you pay for it? We paid $6,600. So like, not too bad. And it really was in good shape. I mean, it had a lot of miles on it, but it was everything we needed. It had like the bed in the back already, and so I mean, we couldn't have asked for more. Right. There were definitely better ones out there. It was funny, there was this one guy that was selling his for like $5,000, and he had converted it and like did a lot of extra work to it. And I was messaging him, and I was like, hey, like, and he had like solar panels, like everything I would have wanted without putting in too much work. And he was like, yeah, like, I don't know. I don't think you can come visit it, like, or come check it out. He was like, I have too much attachment to it. I changed my mind. I'm taking it off. And I was like, what? But it's funny because I was starting to like be discouraged. I was like having a hard time finding something. And he was like, look, like, I'm really sorry that I'm not letting you take this van. I think I need a little bit more time with it. He's like, but I'm telling you, don't give up. Like, traveling cross country is the most magical experience you'll ever have. That's so cool. I was like, oh my God, I literally sat there and said, I'm gonna cry. And I was like, he's right. I was like, he's right. I shouldn't give up. So we kept looking for vans. We go with my dad. I find this one. My dad's like, it's great. Get it. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, in that moment, I was like, holy crap. This means I have to quit my job. So I bought the van. Terrifying. And I go quit my job. Of course, they like, no, stay. Like, no, I have to go. Cold turkey. They're like, well, come back when you're done. I'm like, no, because hopefully I'm doing better by the end of it. Right. But that's nice they offered that. Yeah. Well, we go on our trip, and it really was the most magical experience like I've ever had. What was the route? So we started in Baltimore, Maryland. And instead of going straight across, like through Kansas and like, all of just the Great Plains, all that stuff. Right, the flats, the not much out there. No offense to those states. We love you. But we went down south, and we went through Nashville. I stopped and visited a friend there who, shout out Brooks Berry. He's a musician and a content creator too. He had a big influence on my life also, as far as creativity and all of that. So we visited him in Nashville. And then we went to New Mexico and went up to Colorado. We spent a little bit of time here, did a couple parks. The first park we visited, like official park, was Great Sand Dunes. And we were blown away. Like, that was one of our favorite spots. We had our little cutesy moments where we like listen to our favorite music up there and like cry and watch the sunset. Like, it was great. And then we spent time in Denver. We both loved Denver. I had been to Denver before, and I always knew I liked it. And it's a place on my list that I'd like to live for a little bit. But yeah, so we came here. We, from there, went through Utah. Actually, we stopped in Wyoming first for a little bit in Medicine Bow, which was very beautiful. And a lot less crowded than most places, which was nice. Because I was pretty shocked at how crowded the national parks are, and I've learned that I like the state parks and the national forests and all that better. Not better, but it's a different experience. Like, the national parks are national parks for a reason. They're stunning. They're like, you can't wrap your head around how they look like that. But the national forests are like where you go for some peace and quiet. But yeah, so we went up there and then came around through Utah. I've determined that I think Utah is my favorite state.
No way.
I didn't know Utah. Yes, there's just the variety in landscapes there is insane. Like the mountains and the desert and the canyons and the hoodoos and the weird rock formation.
What's a hoodoo?
A hoodoo is like those like tall like I don't even know, but it's like how to explain it.
It's an animal,
but it's a rock. No, it's a rock.
Okay.
It's like those Bryce Canyon.
The guy that sings.
No, Bryce Canyon, like
the
national park.
Yeah. Is that his name?
Bryce.
Okay, yeah,
right?
go.
Yeah, anyway. So it's like those big like spire type things, but they're like bubbly, like it looks like the rock, like someone dripped mud and formed that rock. Yeah,
funky.
That was a nerdy thing.
That's okay. That sounds cool. Yeah, I hadn't heard that before.
There's just so much stuff out there, and it's amazing that you can look in one direction and see something like completely different landform wise. I don't know much about geology and everything, but it made me want to know more. But yeah, so we went through Utah, and then from there we unfortunately skipped Arizona. Because we had just done a trip to Arizona right before COVID or right during with our parents. Love Arizona too. It's pretty hot though.
Very hot.
Like all the time. And then we went to California. We wanted to go to like San Diego and stuff, but didn't get to. And went through like Yosemite, Kings Canyon, all of that, and then went up to Washington, or Oregon first, then Washington. Oregon, I think, has like a close second on my favorite state. I love Colorado too, but
I'm like, where's Colorado on the list?
She might be third. I don't know. No, I don't know. I think I feel the most like it feels very homey here, and I have gotten like to know the personalities of like the population here a little bit better than elsewhere. So that's a big factor.
Right.
But Oregon's really beautiful. I think the Oregon coast is like stunning. I would retire there, but it's pretty cold, so I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Outer Banks instead. But then we went up to Washington and went through like Forks and, nerded out about Twilight and all that stuff. And then we came back through Montana. I didn't know anything about Montana going into it. Amazing, like so beautiful. Loved it. There's like hardly anyone out there. I think that's the coolest thing about it. And then we came down through Wyoming again, but like went through the whole thing. And we did the Tetons and Yellowstone, and those were two of like my favorite parks. Like Yellowstone is cool. It kind of felt like an amusement park a little bit
because of how touristy it is now. It's
very touristy, and because like for safety, like because there's all like the geothermal like vents and whatever else is there, like it has to be like you have to follow like the path. And people are dumb and don't, but you really should listen.
Right.
I learned that. Listen to what people say about nature. Nature is crazy.
Nature is crazy.
Yeah. So it was like, I thought I was going to hate it for that reason though, that it was going to feel super touristy and whatever.
Yeah.
But we went, and I think what like changed my mind about it is going and watching the bison in the morning. Like we went at sunrise, and like we literally just pulled over on the road and like got our binoculars, and we're just watching the bison like fight and like do their little thing in this huge like field, like prairie, I guess. And that was incredible. Yeah,
that's really cool you were able to witness that.
Yeah, it was very cool. We didn't see any wolves. I was hoping we would.
How do you describe the feeling inside of like your body when you see something like that? Like you get to wake up, sunrise, bison frolicking in the canyon, and you're just here to kind of soak it all in, because like I know how I feel, but like is there words you can put to like the emotions that when you see something like that?
I think the biggest thing, like word that comes to mind is just like gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
and like also like maybe like grounding, but like gratitude, because like I'm a crier, I guess. And I get like, if I see something beautiful, like I can't tell you how many like sites have, I'm just like, I just don't know what else to do but cry because this is so beautiful. Like I don't,
Your emotions don't know where
like,
to go.
I'm like, how does this exist? Like how, and also like, how are we able to just, every sunset I watch, I'm like, how are we able to just stand here and witness the most beautiful thing every evening? Like, I think that's super cool, and that's like what I feel the most. I'm just like, wow, like I'm grateful that I have the means to get here, that I made it happen, that this exists. And then the grounding also just being like, okay, the world is so big, there's so much out there, like none of your problems are really like that crazy and unmanageable. Like the extent of everything you can do and experience is just so big. So.
Yeah, I think gratitude is a really good word for it, and I think more people should prioritize like witnessing sunrises and sunsets. You know, it's depending on where you live, I'm sure they look different everywhere. I know on the East Coast they look far different from how they are out here, just with the landscape. And not that one is better than the other. I still think Ocean City, Maryland has some of the best sunsets and rises that like I've ever seen to date. But over the winter that just passed, I did my first season of snow grooming at Breckenridge, working the graveyard shift, which was a whole interesting experience that I'm sure as the podcast episodes go on, I'll talk about more and more.
You should.
But specifically to this, I worked 12 to 8 a.m., which meant that I got to see the sunrise every morning if it wasn't too overcast to see it. And this winter, I've seen more sunrises than I had ever seen in my entire life, like maybe 3, 4, 5 times over, just because I'm not really a morning sunrise person.
Sure now.
But I am now, and it's so interesting how you can go through like a whole night shift of like really having a tough time staying awake, working from midnight, all the way through the early hours of the morning. And it takes an interesting toll on your brain, and I'll get into more of it, but seeing the sunrise sometimes after going through a whole hard night of work, it's so interesting how like that 15 minutes that it's going crazy almost like makes the entire difficulty and hardship that I just went through staying awake worth it, like just that 15 minutes. And it makes it so worth it that like I'm going to continue to do it, and I'm going to do it next year. And like that's not the only thing that ties me to that, but it's a big one. I mean, and it's something that happens every day, and it's free and kind of just is up there.
It's free dopamine.
It's up there,
free adrenaline. Like it's just, for lack of better words, like it makes life worth it. Like when you see that stuff, it's like all the bad is, I don't know, at least to me,
I think
it's a big thing.
I think for me, it makes me forget about everything else that is going on. Like it doesn't solve any of my problems. It doesn't make any of them go away. Like some things we deal with are very real and have to have our attention and stress us out, but that's just what it takes to overcome a lot of it. But moments when you see a crazy sunrise, a crazy sunset, like nature frolicking in more nature, like those moments kind of like pull me into the present in a way that is like so therapeutic and so addictive, really. Like you want to chase it and get it more and more once you kind of fully like appreciate how to use it. Yeah, I guess.
No, definitely. It's very addicting. Like I don't know. It just feels so good to witness it. And I think like if everybody took the time to just go do that, go like travel and do the whole road trip thing and really appreciate nature, like I think it can do wonders for everybody's mental state and everything.
Common question that I'm sure you've gotten before about the whole trip itself. Two early 20s girls traveling together. I'm sure a bunch of people, that danger holds a lot of people back from doing anything, but specifically a trip like this where you're at dark campsites, like don't
Yeah.
know who's around you. Like, did you ever have situations that like made you guys scared or like, you know, close calls with a weirdo or?
Yeah, I mean, we had some, but I maybe I'm naive, but I like don't get afraid of things like too easily, or like people like trust me, my biggest fear ever is like being kidnapped and held captive for years and years and years, and like no one knows what happened to me.
Big problem.
Yeah, it's a big, it's scary, but I also like, I don't think you should let it hold you back. Like anything bad can happen to you anywhere and with anything you're doing. But yeah, so like a couple times, I mean, well, actually the funniest and biggest story of this really isn't funny. Never mind. Let me reword that. But so when we were in Kings Canyon and we didn't have service for like 2-3 days, and we had the best time when we were there. Like we couldn't communicate with anyone, and we were just like hiking and swimming in lakes, and like we got really close, I feel like, during that section of our trip. And
you and your sister?
Yeah, me and my sister. And it was just really nice to feel like fully immersed in like the nature and everything. And we watched like every sunset and everything. And of course we're like, because before that I think we had gotten in a fight. And so like we kind of like healed us and mended everything, like being there and everything. So we left, and as soon as we got out of this park, our phones start blowing up like we're finally getting service again. Because it was 2 parks. It's the Redwood Forest, I guess, and then Kings Canyon, and they're like connected. So once we were in there, we didn't have service, and we were doing both. So we were there for like 2-3 days, and we come out, and our phones are blowing up, and everyone's like, "Where are you? Where have you been? Like, why aren't you answering? Like, Brian's..." And like people that I haven't talked to in a while, like, "Hey, Brian's texting me asking if I've heard from you. So like, where are you?"
Jeez.
And like my parents, like everything was like pretty bad. And then I had a voicemail from a park ranger being like, "Hey, like your parents are looking for you. Can you please like whatever?" So we caused a lot of panic.
But why was everybody reaching out to you?
Well, so we because we had van troubles right before that, and we had to get things repaired when we were in Vegas. And we also just like had a weird time in Vegas, sort of like not like nothing too bad, but like just the vibes were like kind of off, and we didn't feel like talking to anyone, like doing anything. So we didn't tell them like, "Hey, we're going into this forest and we're not gonna have service and whatever." So yeah, we came out and everybody was super scared that something had happened to us. And it's like kind of a big joke now. But at the time I felt really bad. I was like, "Oh my gosh," like we put our friends and family through that. And meanwhile, we're like having the time of our lives. Like didn't want to leave. So, and that's like, I don't want that to sound like insensitive, because bad things do happen. It is really scary, and you never know, and you have to be safe, and you have to communicate with people. And I'm much better with it now. Like I will give my mom an update like every day, like if I'm traveling by myself, and be like, "Hey, like this is the route I'm taking. This is where I plan on spending the night." You know, whatever. Like I might not have service, blah, 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 blah. I learned from it, because I can be kind of like silly about that stuff and not think about how serious it is.
Yeah, I mean, I find myself hiking sometimes and I'm like, "Oh, it's like dusk. There's like bears and moose out here." And nobody really actually knows that I'm out hiking right now. I probably should. I don't have surf.
Yeah.
Great. Okay,
you should tell people. You really should. So yeah, lesson learned on that one. But that wasn't like, it was fine. It was okay. Everyone got over it. We're all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had some instances where like there was this one guy, once we were like driving down this road to hike some trail, and he like pulls up next to us. We're driving real slow because the van like can't handle all the rickety everything on the road and the rocks. And so we're driving real slow. This guy comes up next to us, and he's like, "Oh, like just asking questions, like making conversation." We're like, "Okay, why are you like pulled up next to us? Like, all right."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, are you doing this trail down here?" And we're like, "I don't know, maybe." Like, even though we're obviously driving down there.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, like, is it just you two?" And we both like, we didn't even exchange a look, but I could just tell that the vibe like shifted, and we're like, "Okay, this is when we be like cautious." And we were like, "No, like our dad's in the car, like he's meeting us from the campsite," like something like that. And like, so you do just like have to know what can happen and be alert and not silly.
Yeah. But everything was fine with that?
But everything was fine. And we we just like took our time getting down there and like ditched the guy somehow. And we ended up there were these other two guys that were like ended up being super nice. Like they never approached us or were weird or anything, and we just started like making conversation with them. And then we're like, oh, they're pretty cool. And then we ended up telling them the story, and they were like, oh, that's super weird. And so we like just did the rest of the hike with them, and they were really nice. But yeah, so that was interesting. And then we had this other guy like come up to us, and he like offered us money, but he was like literally just being nice. He was like, oh, that's super cool what you girls are doing, like da da da, like I always would come out here as a kid and everything. And he's like, I really want to give you this. And we're like, no, it's like, okay, we don't want your money, like this is weird.
Yeah.
and but he like insisted and like sat the money down, and he literally gave us $1,000 cash. And I was just
randomly
like, I was like,
what?
I couldn't wrap my head around that. It was very weird. I was like, this I'm making this up in my head. This is a dream. Like it was just so weird. So yes, we had weird encounters.
Yeah.
But for the most part, everyone we met was cool and nice and had similar mindsets. Yeah, I think like our best like experience was in the Tetons. We met this man who was very like spiritual and into like new age spirituality and stuff, and we met this guy on a hike, and we realized it was going to start like storming, and we're like, hey, like you should probably come down the mountain. And he was like, oh yeah, da, da, da. And we're like, no, seriously, like
yeah, like it's about to thunderstorm.
You should come down, because at this point this was like our last week on the trip. Like we were experienced at this point. We learned to listen to people. So we were like, hey, we're not trying to be like a dick or anything, but you should come down. And so some
people need that.
Yeah, so we start walking down. And he was like, oh, like, you know, you guys seem cool. Like, I'm going to be in Jackson later. There's, like, live music. Like, maybe I'll see you. And we're like, okay. We had come down off the mountain, and, you know, we're thinking maybe we won't see this guy again. Maybe we will. Like, he seemed nice. We didn't know a lot about him. He told us that he was kind of into videography and stuff, too. We didn't know a whole lot, but... So we go down to Jacksonville, and he ends up messaging us. And we're like, yeah, let's meet up. Let's, like, grab a snack and talk. And we end up sitting in this square for like at least 2 hours, like just completely talking to this stranger that we just met. And like it was one of those moments where I was like, I was meant to meet this person.
Oh, wow.
Like I felt like his like perspectives, and like, so I found out I don't think he was like a therapist, but he would coach people with like spirituality and things like that, and just like, you know, finding peace within yourself and dealing with like your relationships and growth and all of that. So we were talking for so long, and I just felt so safe opening up to this man and like telling him everything about me. And it felt so good to be like, you know nothing about me, but I'm just gonna like spill everything. And he was okay with it. Like he wanted that.
Yeah.
And he like complimented us and was like, yeah, like you guys, like that's really awesome that you're doing this young, and you're having these thoughts and like realizing these things about yourself and your relationships and everything. And yeah, like it was one of the best conversations I've ever had. And
what did you take out of it? Like, what was the wisdom that he shared that, you know, what was it?
I think like the biggest thing was just like, a lot of it was about like how, well, for one, we talked about, you know, get out there, like, you know, travel, do all these things, like learn and grow as much as you can. But I think a lot of it was just like relationships. And he talked about how he had like this, I don't want to say like an awakening, but he just like had like a shift where he was like, you know, I don't want to hold grudges anymore. I don't want to have like just like bad, I'm trying to think of the right words.
Just energy.
Yeah,
you know,
like it's just like, you know, like learning and being like, you know, sometimes I'm not perfect. And I need to learn when to go back and like apologize and fix things. And people grow and people change. And like I had told him about like the issues I was having in like certain relationships in my life. And I like it took a lot from that, and just like being like, okay, like also nothing's permanent. Like if you're having problems now, like it's maybe just a growing period and it's gonna come back together. But yeah, I feel like I like it was just like eye-opening to be able to talk to somebody who seems so wise, but also was like, I don't know everything. Like he never like talked like, oh, I know this and this, and I'm gonna help you through it. Like he was just like, genuine. We're all figuring it out. Like he felt very genuine. And I was like, also like a lot comes from just like, yes, be safe, but like talk to strangers, like
Yeah.
strike up a conversation, and you never know what you're going to get out of it. And then we went back to our like campsite that night, and we met this woman who was giving out these like beaded doll things that her sister made. And I have to look at what the exact quote was, but it was just something like, it was just a very nice like quote. Like it was very like heartwarming, and just like being like, pass this around and let it remind you that like all good things. And like, you know, just like the positivity there was like insane. And I think that like has shaped like a lot of like, that's why I want to travel, because it reminds you of all of that. And we met like so many people, and like this little girl who lived with her parents like on the road. Like she was born and raised in an RV and like camped and everything, and she was the sweetest little girl, and like sat and had breakfast with us. Like I don't know, that was me and Shauna's like favorite 2 days ever. Yeah, so
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, those interactions are once in a lifetime, you know, call it coincidences, that your time passes with somebody else's, and you get to kind of share those experiences that, you know, if you never put yourself out there and you never get into the uncomfort zone of traveling and checking out different scenes, that you're just never going to get to experience unless, you know, you're lucky enough to have somebody travel to where you are and them bring their wisdom to you. I guess that's an option as well.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's probably less likely than you going out and getting it yourself.
yeah.
But I think it's really cool. I definitely can relate to like meeting somebody and immediately having a internal gut feeling that's like telling me like, oh, this is an important person. Like I don't exactly know why, I don't know who this person is, but on rare occasions, that like I don't know, it's like a force. I don't really have words for it.
Yeah, like you just like, I guess if you want to call it,
You're just like, oh, this seems important. This seems
destiny,
important.
Like, this is like,
yeah.
Like this is applying to my life so well right now that I'm meeting you, and I'm like getting to share what's going on with me and feel comfortable with you and all of that. Like, I don't know. I've had those feelings like a couple of times. And I think the other thing with like traveling and meeting people, yeah, you might meet those meant to be people in your hometown and whatever, but I think a big part of it is when you go out and travel, like you don't have the comfort of your inner circle and your friends and only being with them. Like I know for me at least, like when I'm at home and I go out, like I don't really care to meet people. Like I just want to be with my friends who I love, and like I nurture those relationships, and that's it. But when I'm out traveling, like I'm like, okay, I'm either here by myself and I stay to myself, which is fine. But like if you don't talk to people, and people are more, I feel like, willing to come up to you when you're like on your own or with one or two people and not like some huge group. But you're just like, you push yourself to talk to people more and meet people that you never would have if you were with the people that you feel comfortable with. Like you have to force yourself out. And I think that's like such a good feeling too. Like at least for me, it's very empowering to know that I can go and talk to whoever, because it's like one of my insecurities, I guess, is to be like, oh, like I get scared of meeting new people and how I'm perceived and everything. But when I'm like traveling and I'm like, oh, I might never see you again, like I think my true self shines through, and that like feels good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's something that you would, if you could go back in time and talk to Felicia from, you know, any time in your adolescence where you were really struggling to find your way, or things were unclear, or you know, just you could have used the advice of your future self, like what's something that you would encourage your past with?
I think I would tell myself, it's hard because I do think everything that happened like led to where we are. But
For sure. Yeah.
But I think I would tell myself, like, stop trying to determine a path for yourself. Like, stop trying to figure out your career, or like be like, is this going to work out? Like with this person, this like boyfriend, this friend, whoever. Like, stop worrying and just let it happen the way it's going to happen. And, you know, like you're going to, as long as you take it one step at a time and not look at like the big picture of like your career and everything. And a lot of this is learned advice from people too. Like it's not just things that I've learned, but
yeah,
like just you can't look at everything and be like, oh, I need to get to some end point, because that's not like how you measure like success and happiness and self-confidence and everything. Like it all leads up to that. So if I would just stop worrying about like, oh my gosh, what's my end goal? Like, am I ever going to make it and be the person that I want to be? Like, it's all about taking the baby steps and pushing yourself each day, like out of your comfort zone, and you will eventually become like what you want to be.
Yeah, I think that's actually really great advice that might be a little hard to wrap your head around at first, because it's like, oh, no, what do you mean? Like, I
don't think she'd listen to me, but I would still tell her.
I gotta have it. Like, what do you? But it's like I can relate to that by, like, in my life, I've kind of been at the understanding that I'm not really in control of anything outside of what I'm in control of, which I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like I can take as much ownership and accountability, and I can do everything right, but at the end of the day, like, I just have to understand that some things can't be mended and some things can't be forced, and some conversations, it's not the right time to have them, whether I want to or not, and it's like a constant hourglass or like liquid in a bottle, just like flushing around, and I'm losing my train of thought here, but my life is kind of like gone through stages that, looking back, it all makes sense. Like,
right.
It's kind of what you said, but in the moment, it's like,
you're like, ugh.
Yeah. I mean, I moved out to Denver to get closer to snowboarding, and I got lucky and was able to move up to Frisco, which is 20 minutes from 5-6 world-renowned ski resorts, and it was never in my expectations to come out here and start snow grooming, operating snowcats, but because I was in the right ecosystem to have that opportunity like cross my plate, and when it did, I recognized it. I was like, oh, that would be sick. Of course I'm going to do that. But it's almost like it was kind of handed to me, and perhaps if I was pushing for a certain outcome that I thought I wanted, I would have blew right past that opportunity, because I was like dead set on,
you
weren't
flexible. You weren't flexible.
Yeah. And I wasn't.
Yeah.
But I was, because I was like interested in all these opportunities. But it's so interesting, just kind of like accepting that life is going to do what it's going to do sometimes, and to instead just like ride the opportunities and ride the conversations and be here right now as much as you can, because I think all the answers are like right in front of us when we need them. Just a lot of times we're like too wrapped up in social media, or we're too wrapped up in conflicts that aren't really important, comparison, that we miss the things that we're looking for on social media maybe, or so I think that's great advice for young Felicia.
Yeah. And I think like for you, like coming out here and doing, like, you knew you liked snowboarding, and that was important to you, and you wanted to get out of, get away and try somewhere different. Like, that's okay. That's all you needed to know. You needed to know one thing that would make you happy. You don't need to know, like, all right, well, am I going to like the location? Am I going to like the job that I find? Am I going to this, and that? Like, you knew one thing that made you happy, and you moved forward with it. And that's like your step. Like, everything else will fall into place as long as you like trust that it will.
Yeah.
I think like
it's trying to like just cultivate the best situation for yourself. It's not going to be perfect. And I think people, for those people that are listening that are struggling with like making a big decision, or they're stuck in a, maybe a work from home job that is a good opportunity and it's comforting and it pays the bills, but it is at the end of the day sitting at home, usually alone on a computer. And if you're like thinking about, I can't go on a 2-month road trip because like, what about money and this and that? And maybe it's cliche to say, but you kind of just have to do it.
Yeah. What's the worst that can
happen?
happen?
Usually your job's hopefully your job would support you and be like, yeah, you should, it depends on whatever. It depends.
Yeah.
But I'd much rather struggle to make what I want happen than to struggle doing something I don't want to do, even if I think I want to do it.
Exactly.
I'd rather come out here and pay the most I've ever paid in rent and stay up all night working, because it means that I can get on the hill and snowboard 7 days a week if I want to, full days, and I get to learn this new skill. And like no, my life out here isn't perfect. Like, I'm exhausted all the time, but I'm somehow more motivated to get that exhaustion than I was when I was not doing where I was and where I wanted to be.
It's a different kind of tired. It's like, I'm tired physically, but mentally, like, I know what I'm doing is like the right thing. And I think, like, you have to look at it as like, okay, I think deep down we all know when we're doing something out of like comfort and fear rather than like, you know, like, and sometimes I like learned this, like, even if you have a bad feeling about something, it doesn't mean that it's the wrong choice. Like, it might just mean that it's scary and you should still do it. I don't know. That's how I'm trying to look at things.
Beautiful.
And I'm no way perfect about all of this. I'm still learning, but.
Well, Felicia, it has been an absolute delight to have you on the podcast, and to just jump back into season 4, you know, with a running start. It's awesome that you're pushing along in your career and making exactly where you want to be a reality in one way or the other. Is there anything you'd like to plug that you're working on, where people can find your, you know, content and reach out to you if they want to work with you?
Yes. So I have 2 Instagram accounts. One is mostly like my more like artsy creative stuff, and then like concerts, EDM, all of that stuff. That is just at Films by Felicia on Instagram. And then I have my wedding page, which is just Wedding Films by Felicia. We're working on the whole like Instagram tag thing. I don't know if I like those, but
easy to remember.
Yeah. So those are the 2 Instagram pages, and that's where I post most of my work. But yeah, and I'm also like wanting to explore new creative projects. So I'm open to anything.
Awesome.
I'm excited to expand and keep growing. So.
Awesome. Well, do reach out to Felicia. All her information will also be in the description of this podcast. She is open to commissions of all kind, right?
Yeah.
Of
sure.
all, you know, for the most part.
Yeah.
Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Mason J Show. Thanks so much, and welcome back.
Thank you, Mason.
Woo.